Good morning or afternoon. Class is back in session. Of course, meteorologist slash Professor Pete here and meteorologist slash Professor Taylor. We're here with you guys wanting to talk about another science phenomenon. We want to make this interesting, but we also want you to learn something. And one of the most fascinating things that I think that we study in our field is thunderstorms.
Yeah, and they're what we call them. They're usually like combustible engines. I mean, they're their own little thing, and they have so much energy picking up and dropping in it. All you got to think about is it's really what you think about when you get in the shower every morning. Am I going to use the cold water or the hot water or both? And that combination, of course, creates a thunderstorm and creates a pretty interesting topic that we're about to talk about.
Oh yeah, we're about to get into one of the most interesting things about thunderstorms. Before I tell you what it is, a lot of times we can tell the intensity of the thunderstorm by looking at the size of this particular thing. Let me just go ahead and tell you what it is. It's hail. Hail, the way it develops, it's remarkable. It's one of those things that if you see, we detect it on radar, the size of it, we already know what's going on inside of the thunderstorm and what things we should be looking for.
Yeah, and if it looks like the size of a baseball or the size of a grapefruit, you're probably like, oh, hell no.
Yeah, I'm going inside.
Definitely going inside, and that can be dangerous if you're out and about in that. So we're going to go back through the process, of course, of what builds a thunderstorm here and what makes hail formation. So looking at the breakdown of this, once again, it's all about the warm and cold air and building a thunderstorm. Of course, you need that warm air to rise to get those clouds going, and that builds in some moisture at times, and then you get some of that lightning that starts to form as ice particles and water start to collide upstairs, and you start to get some of these nice enhanced cloud features up above, and that combination, of course, makes the lightning, which we talked about earlier or last week here with our weather education lesson. The collision of the positive and negative charges in the clouds, of course, gives you that lightning. That lightning can cause some problems as it tries to make its way to the ground at these trees down below, as well as the power poles, or even a human being down there could get struck easily by a lightning. But with a lot of lightning in a thunderstorm, of course, it means it's very strong, and with very strong thunderstorms, of course, we have hail, and hail can be a big time problem. So how does hail form? Well, we look at strong thunderstorms. They can contain strong updrafts. That's simply the motion of the air that's being sucked up or pulled up into the storm. They can also create what's called a downdraft, and sometimes those downdrafts can be very, very strong, and they can output some very strong winds to the surface. If you remember back to last year in Perry Hall, as well as out towards the White Marsh area, we had what was called a downburst, and that was basically a downdraft that's coming down out of a thunderstorm, but it's over a very localized area. And that localized area included Perry Hall and out towards the White Marsh area, right along Honeygo Boulevard, where we did have some very, very strong gusty winds that created a lot of damage. But with those updrafts and downdrafts, a strong updraft can keep water particles suspended for a very long period of time, and the higher they go up, of course, the colder the temperatures are in the upper levels of the atmosphere above us, up there where the airplanes ride, and those particles can be suspended and they're allowed to freeze in some of that colder air. And that updraft will hold them up there as long as possible, and the longer it holds them up there, those ice particles will grow in size, and that's what creates what is called a hailstone up there in the top of the cloud. And what happens? Well, eventually those hailstones have to come somewhere, and they come down on top of us, houses, cars, and the like. And that's where I'm going to hand it over to meteorologist Patrick Peep, because they can come down in all types of different sizes, including sometimes looking like flying saucers.
Oh yeah, man. We're always looking at the sizes of these hailstorms because we hadn't talked about severe thunderstorms, but one of the ways that we can determine how strong a storm is or how serious we should take a storm is one of the main ingredients is the size of the hail. So we're looking to see how many and how large those hailstones are. It gets carried up and down, and there's a process that we call collection efficiency. Once again, it's interacting with some of those other particles up there, and it's being refroze. It comes down, it melts a little bit, but the updraft shoots it back up, so it refreezes again. And once again, the intensity or the strength of the storm determines how many times that happens. And at some point, either this is going to get heavy enough, or essentially the downdraft will overtake, or the updraft will weaken, and we'll eventually start to see this falling to the sky, to the ground. And that's whenever we're on alert, because Anything that is falling from that high up is going really fast. It can cause damage to vehicles. You ever seen a bunch of car roofs messed up? But there have even been people who have actually been killed by hail falling out of the sky that hasn't been large. So you always want to take all of these different weather elements serious. Now, the sizes can range. Some of it can be 1/4 of an inch. That's non-severe. We call that pea-size hail. It could be what we call 3/4 of an inch. That's about the size of a dime or a penny, and you can see those getting larger. And once it gets to quarter size, that's about 1 inch in diameter. That's whenever we classify this storm as a severe thunderstorm, and that means that this 1/4 inch size hail can really do some major damage. Ping pong size hail, playing ping pong? Yeah, sometimes hail can fall that large, and unfortunately it can get even larger than that. Golf ball size, club size, tennis ball. Man, I would not want to be on the ground when that happens.
We had an event here in Maryland. It was back in, I believe, 2016 or 2017, up towards the Cockeysville area, where the hail was between about golf ball and baseball size hail. And that created a lot of damage in those areas, and a lot of insurance claims were filed. And softball size hail, that's pretty big, but it can go bigger than that, right? Out towards Nebraska, of course. I think that's where the world record is for a hailstone, a little over 4 inches, and that's the size of a grapefruit.
That is crazy. I would not want to be outside seeing that happen. And that was a strong thunderstorm.
That was a very strong thunderstorm. So they get bigger hail cases, of course, out in the Midwest compared to what we get here, but we're still accustomed to seeing sometimes ping pong size, 1/4 size, pea size, and we also see grapple.
We see grapple, which is not far off from hail. And we'll say it every once in a while on air, and you're probably looking, because everyone knows the major precip. We know snow, rain, sleet, but no one knows grapple.
No one knows grapple. Grapple usually is what we call soft hail. It looks a little bit like a BB somewhat, or even an M&M, and it falls down. It's pretty much frozen, but it's also very dry, and it melts very quickly. So it's pretty common around here. But once again, hail, at least for the hail sizes behind us, we're usually up here in this zone where it's yellow. We don't see this. We'll just cover that up. We don't want to see that right there.
Where I'm from, I've seen this several times. So
golf
down
ball.
in Louisiana, I've seen some golf ball size hail.
Golf ball and tennis size hail. So once again, we want to prepare you at least for severe weather season. This is one of the severe weather awareness weeks coming up here as we get into spring, and we hope this helps. I mean, it's pretty interesting. I mean, to us, I hope it's interesting to you at home.
The whole process is interesting, that it can just go up and down in a thunderstorm. I think that that's remarkable. And we talked about severe thunderstorms. This is one element that we use to classify a severe thunderstorm, but there are others. And we're going to be diving into those and breaking those down for you over the course of the next few days. So look forward to hearing more on severe weather from us. We'd love to hear your questions and comments below. Let us know what you're thinking. And we'll be happy to respond.
Yeah, kids, and if you got any photos of what the weather may be doing in your neighborhood, send them our way. If you want to draw us a map or anything, we would love to see that as well, and we'll incorporate it into the discussion.
Absolutely. Until next time, y'all have a good day.